Hey there, friend. Welcome back to another edition of the Premier Investments and Wealth Management Financial Program. My name's Doug Wagner, your host. I've got three gentlemen around the table with me today. I'm going to introduce them to you in just a second, but I want you to ask yourself a question before we go any further. Am I ready for retirement? If you're like most Americans, you probably don't know. And if you've got maybe even just sort of a hazy feeling of whether you are or are not, you really need to bring that into focus. And you can do that with my friends at Premier Investments and Wealth Management. Just go to their website, premieriwm.com, click Get Started, answer a few questions, and from there, they'll produce for you what's called a one-page Premier Vision document. What this is a document that gives you a roadmap for your financial future, and they'll give it to you. It's very simple when they hand it to you. It's one page, but it's made up of thousands of points of information that all come from you based on the answers to the questions that they ask you. Not only that, they'll sit down for a free, no obligation meeting with you. Where you are, you can come to them, or you can do it over the internet any way you would like to. That's a free initial consultation, and they'll hand off that one-page Premier Vision document. You've got nothing to lose. Why don't you get in touch with them? Even if you have a wealth advisor right now, it doesn't hurt to kick the tires and get a second opinion. PremierIWM.com is the website. Lots of downloadable information there. You can also give them a call if you'd like. Get in touch with them at 800-383-6590. That's 800-36590. Premier Investments and Wealth Management named to Forbes 2026 Best in State Wealth Management Team. Joined on my right by Casey Mushrush, my neighbor who just sent me.
I was going to say, you just got the text, I see. So.
Yeah, you got an invitation to a Catterday. Yes.
The Catterday party is this Saturday, Doug. So if you were available. Now, I did tell somebody that I'm very much of the opinion, because those actually do look like our cats.
Yeah.
That is the appropriate use of generative AI, and today's is the creation of Catterday invitations.
Exactly. You are correct. And that's about all it is, but that is good. I like that. Casey Mushrush, he's a wealth advisor, certified financial planner, professional CFP with over 11 years of experience in the investment industry, and he's also known as Dr. Casey Mushrush.
Just you, Doug.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Saw the kids had the lemonade stand up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was good.
That's it's one of those things that, again, that's something that continually snowballs. So it just continues to get better and better every year that we do it.
Well, I mean, you've got construction just across the street from you. So you've got lots of employees are out there, hot days, too.
Yep.
So that was perfect.
So, we're planning on lots of lemonade stands this summer again, too.
There you go. Good deal. Next to him, wealth advisor with over 31 years of experience in the investment industry, my friend Jonas Everett. How are you?
Great, Doug. Good to see you, sir.
You as well. How was vacation?
Great. Vacation in Minnesota, and great milestone. Had the youngest graduation party, went off without a hitch, and
congratulations.
Really good. Everybody got well fed, and
good.
Yeah, so
was it
lots
musky for everybody?
Lots of festive activities going on.
That's cool. Well, I'm glad you made it back, because I know up north in Minnesota they had some wildfires.
Right.
So
right.
Hopefully you weren't around where those were.
No, got out just in time.
All right. Good. Oh.
Back to the safety of Iowa here.
Gotcha. Just in time, huh? You might have to send somebody up to take a look at it. Kidding. Jonas, it's good to see you again. Next to him, the guy who could probably take care of any issue like that, Vice President and Wealth Advisor. He's a certified exit planning advisor and the new sheriff in town, Elias Randall. Elias, how are you today?
Good, Doug. So what issue am I taking care of?
I don't know. He leaves and all of a sudden wildfires break out behind where he was.
I would not know how to manage a wildfire.
You get that
so you're
badge
saying you have
out.
a lot of skills, and managing wildfires are not one of them?
Yeah, that's not on the list.
You get the badge out. That's too good. I like that. Hey, I appreciate all y'all hanging out with us. One of the things that we really like about this is that we all get along really well, and it's more than just about money and finance. This is really a lifestyle program when it comes down to it. It does focus on your investing, your financial future, because when it comes down to it for you, you're trying to make the best investment and financial decisions. That's why we take a lot of your questions and we ask them on the program. Like Casey, Ian wants to know, I'm about to pay off my student loans. What should my next step be? I'm 34. I will have my student loan paid off in the next 2 months. Once it's paid off, I want to increase my lifestyle a little bit, but put most of the extra cash to work. I'm already contributing enough to get the full 401k match. Should I just keep increasing my 401k contributions, or are there other investments I should consider?
Ian, this is an excellent question. And before I get into answering it, I just want to tell you congratulations. I mean, this is absolutely phenomenal. You know, you're getting over to this point where you've got this student loan that you're getting paid off. Sounds like you're doing a lot of things really, really well. So number one, I just want to congratulate you on this upcoming milestone. And then also point out that you're asking a lot of really good questions here. Like, what are the next steps? What do you want to do? And I actually think that the approach that you're looking at is extremely good, because you did say, I want to increase my lifestyle a little bit, but I don't want to just replace that student loan payment with a new payment. That you're saying that, hey, I do want to loosen up the purse strings just a little bit, be able to continue to enjoy myself a little bit while also doing some other very positive things. So I think your approach that you're taking a look at is spot on. Now, one of the things that we do want to make sure that we understand is, do you have the very basics in place? Because this is a really good time. Revisit the basics, take a look, just make sure that you've got everything actually set up there. We've got a little chart that may be showing up here if you're on the online version of this, or if you can go check out the Road to Financial Freedom on our website. There's a chart over in there that talks about building your net worth. It really kind of goes through generically some of the things that we suggest and some of the things you're actually doing as well. So number one, taking a look at emergency reserves, making sure you got that 3 to 6 months. Now, again, this can be tailored depending on the situation, maybe a little bit more if you're self-employed, maybe a little bit less if you have really good short-term disability along with long-term disability through your work. And then also, if you have any sort of a match with a health savings plan. I know you didn't ask about HSAs, but if you are under a high deductible plan and can make contributions to an HSA, that is one of the most tax-efficient savings mechanisms that are available under today's tax code. And then getting that match in the 401k, paying down the high interest rate debt, which is actually what you're talking about right here, eliminating those student loans. And we define that really by anything somewhere in that 6% range or above. We want to pay that down as quickly as possible. Taking a look at maybe a Roth IRA. Now, you mentioned your 401k that you're getting the match there. You did not mention whether you have Roth 401k available or taking a look at maybe a Roth IRA. Being 34 years old, you're probably in the first part of your earnings capability or your earnings years. So maybe looking at some of those after tax or some of those Roth assets might be a good thing for you to take a look at. And then coming back and putting additions into your 401k plans, maybe looking at a taxable brokerage account if you're trying to do an early retirement and need some sort of a bridge spending account. But these are some of the very basic things that we would want to be taking a look at in terms of that sequence. Now, exactly what you have available to you and the order that you would go in is going to be very highly dependent upon your unique set of circumstances. So really, this does give you a great opportunity to take a step back, assess where you're at, and then redirect some of that cash flow over into some of these other savings mechanisms that help you reach your long-term financial goals. So number one, again, congratulations on hitting this milestone. That is awesome. Keep up the good work, and go check out that Road to Financial Freedom handout or the booklet that we have available on the website as well.
PremierIWM.com is the website. Jonas, I've got a question for you because they say, hey, I want to be able to increase my lifestyle a little bit, and this is part of one of the many, many, many best-selling books on 15th Avenue Court that you've written. You get into that whole concept of lifestyle choices and the way that you're going to fund them.
Yeah, I do. And really, I'm glad that you said that. And I think that it's important to realize that unless you're super wealthy, it's really difficult to increase your lifestyle all at once.
Yeah.
So I just have people pick in the book that I wrote, a couple of books, I just have people pick between cars, houses, and vacations. Mm-hmm. And really pinpoint down what they want to do for retirement. One of the great stories was I asked a really fantastic customer, what are you going to do? Walk me through your first year in retirement. What are you going to do? And she's like, I just want to be a homebody and clean for the first year. And I'm like, well, that's not going to require a lot of money. And at the time, she was retiring from the largest home products cleaning consumer brands company in the nation. So I'd imagine she was able to get some discounts. But pinpoint that first year in retirement. I know very few people that can have the new house, new car, and take all those trips.
You are correct about that. So it's
Doug
important.
Wagner is one of them.
Yeah, right. Hey, if you're not living outside of your means, you don't have imagination. That's what it comes. I'm kidding about that. That's the exact.
I thought he was going to say if you're not living outside your means, you're probably not in radio.
Right. Well, here's a magic wand, Doug.
Exactly.
I just got back from Disney. Here's a magic wand for you with that statement.
Can I tag on one thought on there?
Sure.
For this topic. So I think the increase in lifestyle, if you're doing all of the things you should be doing, you have a good foundation and you're executing a lot of the things we talk about in financial planning, I think you can take that as a permission slip to increase your lifestyle. And that should be a short-term reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, should be a short-term reward for, as they say, being an adult with your money.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they skip all the other parts, and it's always lifestyle increases. Well, I can tell you the result you're going to get with that. You might be working forever.
I think even with Ian though, like part of that's embedded over within this question. I mean, some of that baseline assumption is that he's not going to be taking every single dollar and contributing it over into lifestyle. I mean, his first question is, should I save it all? No, I actually don't think in a particular situation like this. Now, there may be some nuance to that, so we'd want to run through the financial plan, make sure you're still on track, given what you want to create in the future. But it may not be appropriate to save every single one of these dollars, redirecting them over into some sort of retirement plan. Depending on what his goals are, it may be highly appropriate for him to increase his lifestyle and create that balance. And I think that's kind of when we go over into this entire financial planning process, where it's a little bit different depending on where you're approaching this thing. Like if you're 2 years from retirement, we are very, very focused on retirement income. How much money can be generated out of a portfolio and out of a financial situation in order to sustain a retirement over a very long period of time. Somebody who's 34 years old and saving, this is where we have a lot more of those conversations on what are the trade-offs. What are the trade-offs on increasing lifestyle right now versus what that looks like at some point in time in the future? And unfortunately, especially if we've got somebody like Ian here who's realistically somewhere between 20 and 30 years away from retirement, that's a little bit cloudy. We're not going to be able to say, well, you will have $1.72 million if you take this thing and allocate it over to that. Now we can apply a mathematical formula and we could say that it's going to be approximately there, but we don't know exactly what a portfolio is going to do. And some of these minor differences can have some large impacts. And that's really, I think, what the conversation with Ian is what is it that you're trying to create? And let's build out something that gives us a high likelihood of being able to do that, and then be able to give yourself permission to also enjoy yourself too, because that is an important part of this conversation.
The Premier Vision document's something that you get exclusively at Premier Investments and Wealth Management, premieriwm.com. Just answer the questions after you click Get Started. You can also ask them if they would, maybe give you the way to get in there. I mean, you can do this without doing that, but you just got to call and make that appointment. 800-383-6590. Premier Investments and Wealth Management, named to Forbes 2026 Best in State Wealth Management Teams. Back over to you, Elias. Trace wants to know, I have an old employer Roth 401k account that I can leave alone, roll over to a current employer Roth 401k, or roll over to an existing older than 5 years Roth IRA. I'm debating what to do. My goal is to never touch the money and to pass it to my heirs. Is one option preferable? I'm leaning toward the Roth IRA for simplicity, but I'm wondering if there are any non-obvious differences that I'm overlooking or misinterpreting.
Well, to answer this question, for anyone who's not driving or multitasking at the moment, I think if you could get a pen and paper and write something down, this will help clear this up for you. So if you draw a little T, and on one side you wrote Roth IRA, and on the other one you wrote Roth 401k, you could just list out these differences. At the end of the day, you will be able to invest the money. So on the Roth IRA side, if you wrote more investment flexibility, simplified account management, existing 5-year clock is already satisfied, and no dependence on an employer plan's rules or future changes. Those would be the primary differences. On the other side, for the Roth 401k, you could write down strong creditor protection in some situations, access to exceptionally low-cost institutional investment options, so potentially some cost savings. A desire to keep retirement assets consolidated within your employer plan. And what that last one means is if you're going to move it from an old employer plan to your new employer, you would just be consolidating within there. So the way I like to educate clients and make this decision is it really comes down to those items there. And then I think ultimately for me, when I think about this topic, it's the flexibility of how the money will be invested that I typically lean towards the individual retirement account in these situations. And what I mean by flexibility is in an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k, you're limited on your investment options. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just means you have a limited menu of what you can get. When you move into a self-directed Roth IRA account, you should be able to buy anything that's accessible on the exchanges. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. Mm-hmm. And I think for someone whose primary goal, as stated in this question, is long-term growth and then leaving assets to their heirs, the Roth IRA is going to be a very clean solution. It's going to provide you investment flexibility, investment choices, ease of management. You're going to lose on some creditor protection. You're probably going to pay a little bit more for a similar fund because it's not inside a 401k plan. And the other thing I like is you'll never have to worry about that plan changing their rules because it's your account now. Okay. And then as far as leaving the money to heirs, I hope if there's anyone out there thinking about leaving money to me, I hope it's in a Roth IRA.
I love the T-chart, Elias. Is that Ben Franklin or Abe Lincoln? Who started the T-chart for decision making?
I don't know.
I love that.
A pro
no
con
idea.
list?
Yeah.
But I know where I stole the idea to ask listeners to write something down. I stole that from Jonas. He's here today.
Yeah.
So I figured I'll steal the idea, use it right in front of him, and then give him credit for it.
There you go.
And it covered all my bases.
Thank you.
Well, and also, Jonas is the one that did the Rothification. Okay, he didn't. But the Rothification guide's available for you at premieriwm.com. He could have done it had he wanted to and had time, but he doesn't because he's working with so many of you who get in touch with him at 800-383-6590. Jonas, let's go over to the next question for you from Pat. My wife and I are 52. We're pretty middle class. We work, save into our retirement accounts, aren't drowning in debt, and try to be responsible with our money. We've sat down a few times over the years to run numbers on how much we're spending and saving. We've never had a written financial plan and aren't sure we really need one. What are the real benefits of having a financial plan for an average household?
Thanks, Pat. I think a common misconception is a financial plan is only for wealthy people. I think, in my opinion, a good financial plan is designed for the middle class because it helps them maybe probably more than wealthy people because it really develops a roadmap for you. So you don't, we really in the middle class, you don't have a lot of time to make huge mistakes, and you can't recover from those mistakes maybe like the super wealthy can. And it kind of reminds me of maybe I'm getting off topic here, but maybe some of Bernie Madoff's victims that he embezzled the money for. I don't know how many of them there were, but I'm sure probably 80% of them are okay and still super wealthy after 17 years. So middle class and the financial plan, what can it do for you? Let me put it to you this way. If you don't have a financial plan and you're in the middle class, it's like going to the grocery store and you forgot your list at home. It's pinned up on the refrigerator. Yeah. It's just a free-for-all. You're just going from aisle to aisle. Imagine you're going from financial instruments to Roth IRAs to 401ks, a la carte. You're just putting stuff in the cart. A financial plan determines how much you need to save for retirement. So working with a good advisor, he or she would have you save at least 10%. How much can you realistically spend in retirement? That question that we ask people, walk me through your first year in retirement. What's the expenditure going to be? Instead of using a retirement calculator where you're going to be projected to spend $10,000 a month. Maybe you don't need $10,000 a month. That's what a good financial plan does, determines how much you need. When should you claim Social Security, Doug? This is the biggest financial decision that people make in retirement, and they leave it up to the water cooler or what their uncle did half the time. It just floors me that they don't come in and get the data on that, or do a little bit of research, because it's free, it's available for everybody.
Right.
So when should you claim? One of my favorites is, we always get calls at the office all the time. Or at least I'm really big on customers enjoying their money. So I always ask them during conversations, is there any way that, you could enjoy some of this money if they've done a good job? So we get calls from customers all the time, once a week usually, and saying, hey, I need to put in a new driveway. The last call I received was, my neighbor's putting in a new driveway, and gosh darn it, his looks better than mine now, so I need to put in a new driveway. Where should I take the money from? And I'll call you back. So I need to go through your stuff and figure out which account to take it from. So we provide a really good service there. That's a part of the financial plan. Here's one of the big ones that the most popular ones that we're working on is everybody. It seems that like there's a lot of people that are interested in converting their taxable accounts to tax-free accounts. And Casey and Elias and Mark Hunter, they do a fantastic job by telling people, let me call you back. Send your tax return in. Let me call you back. Let's put it through our X-ray machine. Let's put it through our software system and come back. And this is a really big biggie when it comes to taxes over a lifetime. And you can, right now, thanks to the Big Beautiful Bill Act, we have a couple of more years where you can do it. And we're doing it all the time. So people are very interested in reducing taxes over their lifetime. Do your investments. A financial plan will show you how much risk you're taking with your investments. And it's kind of like a blood pressure rating. Is this normal for you? Are you comfortable with the risk that you're taking? And then moving on, it just organizes everything for you. Beneficiaries, insurance, estate, documents. I had one customer that I felt I did a really good job for, as far as picking the right investments. I kept up to date on like contacting him and his family on a regular basis, and I asked him what has been your biggest thrill, or what have you liked the most about working with me, and he said, the fact that Mark Hunter organized everything for me at the beginning. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not what I was quite thinking, but we'll take it. So, after you, it's just and I understand now that was a complete sigh of relief getting everything organized, because back to going into the grocery store without a list, he had the list now. He was going to the grocery store. The grocery store was his retirement. He had everything organized for him, and that was the most important part of a financial plan for him. But, Pat, to answer your question, to put it simply, it just ultimately provides you a roadmap, and I think it's especially designed for the middle class, not just the super wealthy.
Yeah. I think to put a little bit of a summary on it, and again, this, Pat, would go back over to what a financial plan really does. Because I think that if you're asking this question, there may be a little bit of a misconception on what it is, which, again, I think, Jonas, you did an excellent job about talking about some of the mechanics. But at the very, very basic level, a financial plan is going to identify your priorities and then flag risks. What is the risk to your retirement when it comes over to that taxation? What is the risk to your retirement when it comes to that Social Security claiming decision? What is the risk of the investment portfolio? All these things are actually identified through there. And simultaneously, to your point, Jonas, identifying those priorities of what's actually important to you. Because is it staying at home and cleaning for the first year, or is it going out and hitting up every golf course between Palo Alto, California, and Syracuse, New York? Like those are very, very different, very different retirements, and a well thought out process and plan will help to understand the differences between those two and what it actually takes in order to get there.
He said something earlier, Jonas did, about blood pressure, which got me thinking, if you've got medical issues, you go to a doctor. If you've got legal issues, you have an attorney. if you want to talk about finances, you get your information from, like Jonas said, the water cooler, or from your uncle and his buddies that maybe you go golfing with every once in a while. How about you get in touch with a professional, like the professionals at Premier Investments in Wealth Management, premieriwm.com, click Get Started, answer the questions, get a one-page Premier Vision document, and a free consultation, a meeting with them. They'll come to you, you can come to them, or they'll do it over the internet. The whole thing is that if you've got professionals in so many other areas of your life, you've got a mechanic that you go to, for goodness sake. Isn't your financial future just as important, if not more so? PremierIWM.com, or call today for your appointment, 800-383-6590. Stacia wants to know, my husband and I are getting close to retirement and searching for our forever financial advisor. Ooh, this is like a dating game. The problem is we're already gone through a handful of advisors over the years. Every relationship has felt a little like online dating. Great first impressions, but eventually something just wasn't the right fit. Before we commit to another long-term relationship, we're thinking about asking each advisor we're considering to create a comprehensive financial plan so we can compare their recommendations side by side. Is that a smart way to find the right advisor, or are we turning this into the financial planning version of a TV reality competition show? Elias.
Comparison is healthy to do in this situation. Here's going to be the challenge. You start to compare financial plans. They're going to be very similar. There's only so many ways to really craft what you're going to set out to execute for clients, most of the time driven by the philosophy of the particular firm that you are interviewing. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, good investments exist everywhere. So at the end of the day, it shouldn't come down to investment recommendations, because whether you have money with us, money with a different firm, you really think about it, we have access to the same stuff and the same information. So it's really hard to separate yourself based on that alone. Most of the things you're going to hear addressed, a lot of times are going to be your retirement income planning, the investment allocation, tax considerations, any Social Security decisions, and estate and beneficiary reviews. So I came up with a list of questions that people could ask during the interview process that's a little bit outside of those things. Here's a good one. How often will we meet? I don't know what's happened with Stacia and her situation, but maybe they're not being contacted to schedule planning meetings, reviews, checkups, whatever people want to call it. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's going to be a rock in your shoe. How do you know if you're on track if you're never revisiting the topic? Who will we actually work with day to day? Here's why this is a great question. When you hire Premier, you work with the team that we have here. So you don't only work with Elias or Casey or Jonas, you work with the whole team. So day to day, like Doug, you could call here and let's say you needed some money to go on a fancy trip like you like to go on. Would you have to talk to one of us to do it, or could you talk to any member of the service team and you know it'll get done?
Yeah. Nope, you're right about that.
So that's a great question. Who are we going to work with on a day-to-day operation basis? How are the major decisions handled? Now, this is where I start to delineate for people. So day-to-day administrative tasks, service team handles. A major decision in your life, that's going to be a conversation with your advisor. Right? You're hiring them to work through those scenarios and topics. What happens when markets become volatile? Well, that's a good question. Because that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's a great question to ask people. What will happen when the market becomes volatile? And then you'll start to get some insight on what are the offerings at this firm? Do they do any risk management? And you start to answer those questions. How proactive is the communication? This one's really common. A lot of people end up asking this. And what I think the proactive communication should be according to the client's expectations. So a lot of times I'll ask them that before they ever have to ask me, because I want to know what they expect. If I don't know someone's expectations, it's impossible to deliver on that. And what services are included beyond investments? Another really good question, because the investments are just part of what we do. I could probably argue that's the easiest part of what we do here is picking good investments. And I would love to tell people we have the secret sauce, magic silver bullet
that nobody else
that
does.
no one else has, doesn't exist. If an investment person tells you something like that, it's a giant red flag. That doesn't exist. No one has something that no one else has. So the services beyond the investments, that's much more important, because then you'll understand, okay, are we doing financial planning? Is it goals-based planning? What type of income strategy are we going to have? Are there other services available, such as like estate planning, right? We have that available here. Can you get your tax documents prepared? There's a lot of things that places can offer. There's a lot of really great firms out there. So I just thought, hey, I'm going to give a list of questions.
Yeah.
Here's some things that you could ask that's outside of, everyone knows they can get investment advice and a retirement income plan. I think the key thing is you should understand before you make the decision these other items.
Casey, you had some thoughts.
Well, I just, one of the questions that was kind of on here, are we turning this into a financial version of a reality TV competition? I mean, possibly. Because again, kind of with what you're talking about, Elias, what if we're getting into a situation where you're walking in and you're getting a $5,000 fee-only plan that is completed versus somebody who's charging $250? Those plans may look identical. Like, it's a very real possibility that that's the case. So are we going to say, well, this plan is better because it costs more? I don't think that's the appropriate metric or the appropriate measure of how, whether or not that is actually quality advice. I've seen some advice that didn't cost anybody anything, and quite frankly, it was quote unquote free. Now, if you're on the radio version of this, you can't see me putting up my air quotes, and it was the most expensive advice I'd ever seen in my life. I've seen other places or other times where somebody actually had a situation where a fee was charged, a relatively nominal fee. Might have looked like it was a relatively large dollar amount, but in the grand scheme of things, it ended up saving them significantly more in a lot of different areas because of the way that that plan was actually developed and how it was actually being delivered and what was actually being done in terms of the work behind it. So, I think you run a risk a little bit here, Stacia, of unfortunately having some inadvertent level of comparison, just because when you get into the financial services industry, there are a lot of different ways that compensation can be driven, whether it's a fee-based advisor, whether it's a fee-only advisor, whether they're commission-only, whether they're actually an advisor and they're not just a insurance agent that is saying that they are providing some level of financial advice. So, and that's not to say that all insurance is bad, but I would be very, very cautious if the only thing that is available is only one tool, because if the only thing I have is a hammer, then everything becomes a nail. So we want to make sure that how that advice is being delivered and what those recommendations are actually consistent with what your goals and objectives are, and that it actually is unbiased in that delivery.
Jonas, we're going to finish with you, and I'm going to tee this up here in a different way because we've been talking about a lot of things, but I think one of the things is the relationship portion of it, because there was eventually something that just wasn't the right fit. That sounds like a relationship sort of thing, and that's part of what you work on. And when you're sitting there with people, and honestly, you've had people who said, you know what, you're not the right fit for us.
Oh, absolutely. And here's where I would start, Stacia. Look for what you don't want. And I have 3 different points. And the guys touched on some great points, but you don't want to find an advisor that's going to retire at the same time you do. So you're on the fishing boat and you look over, there's another fishing boat. Hey, there's your advisor. Who's running the office? So I received a phone call from a customer that said, I'm with a person. He's a one-man shop. I love this guy. He's done a great job. The investments have been fantastic. But the last time I went in, he couldn't figure out how to turn the computer on. So I need a second opinion with your shop. So avoid the one-person shop. I think you deserve a team at this point, a financial team to work with. And I think what Elias said it's all about communication. One of the things that I ask people with all the excitement about Roth conversions now, how accessible is your CPA? I had one customer say, She's never returns my call. She's always on vacation. I'm super envious of her. And I said, well, it's going to be kind of difficult. Do you have your tax return? Can we get that? It's going to be kind of difficult to get her recommendation along with ours in sync. So how accessible is your company that you want to work with? And like Elias said, if they're asking you in advance, do you want to see us 4 times a year? That would be it's worth weight in gold right there.
Yeah, and it makes sense to get in touch with a company that's going to be able to work with you. And not only that, but they have professional affiliations as well, whether it's CPAs, whether it's attorneys, whether it's insurance, Medicare, things like that. It's important that you have the full gamut available to you. Premier Investments and Wealth Management is going to be able to help you do that. Again, it's not the secret sauce in all of the investments, but it's that relationship and how everything really just comes together. Premier Investments and Wealth Management at premieriwm.com or call for your appointment, 800-383-6590. Premier Investments and Wealth Management named a Forbes 2026 Best in State Wealth Management Team. Elias James wants to know, my wife and I are in our early 40s. Several years ago, we sold our house, moved across the country for a job opportunity. We decided to rent until we knew the move was a long-term fit. Our townhouse is rent-controlled, which is great because we live in a very high cost of living area. We started saving aggressively with the goal of retiring early. We recently started discussing buying a house, but the housing prices here mean our mortgage would be much higher than our rent, even if we put every dollar we have from our previous home sale toward the down payment. We're worried that buying a home will derail our goal of retiring early. Do you have any advice for people when 2 of their top financial goals seem to completely contradict one another?
This is a great example of why personal finance is personal to every situation and unique to every family. Here we have an example of these are 2 good goals that are really competing with each other for attention. And it's not always what's the mathematically optimal path to go. Sometimes you have to decide, well, which goal is more important to me at this time, and then prioritize that accordingly. And many people just automatically assume that buying a home or buying a house is always the right financial decision. But as in this question, when you're living in a rent-controlled property in a high-cost area, that math could look different. And it might not be that buying a home is the best thing for you. And the other thing I'm going to say before I get into more of the answer, unless you're going to pay cash for a house, conceptually, you're either renting from a landlord or you're renting from the bank until it's paid off. So there's going to be a cash payment, cash outflow every month, regardless of whether you own the property or you rent it. So if buying a house increases your monthly cost so much that you have to reduce your savings rate and reduce the amount you're investing, that absolutely could delay hitting your age of financial independence or your retirement date. On the other hand, home ownership does provide for greater stability and control over the situation, freedom to customize your home as well. So when you own the house, right, if you want to remodel something, you can remodel it and change it. I could probably make an argument that if you rent a house and you're not allowed to remodel, that's going to save you some headaches and money along the way too. I
Sorry,
would like
honey,
to
no remodeling this year.
Right. Wouldn't that be a great out? I'd love to have a nicer kitchen, but it's not my house. Can't do it. There could be some positives to that. So here's a great thing, and this is a scenario. So if a client of mine were asking me this scenario, I'm going to tell everyone exactly what we would do. We would go into our planning software and we would model this scenario. If you spend X and continue saving Y, this outcome is going to be this. And what it helps people do is make decisions in the short term without negatively impacting their long-term outcomes. And I recently just did one of these. Younger family came in, wanted to know, where do we stand today? What are we on track for? And then their real main question, not their main question for all the planning, but the short-term fire they're trying to address is they would like a bigger house. Mm-hmm. Their family's grown to a size where the first house they purchased, too small for them now. The good news for them was they can keep their savings rate right where it is, go buy another house. So we were able to figure out, does this work in your current budget? If you do this, does it derail your long-term goals? The answer was no. So now they have the confidence to go do this, and they know that they're not guessing. They're not hoping that it will work out. They know that everything will work out, and they can have what they want in the short or medium term of having a house that's a little bit bigger, a little newer. Funny thing is, they want to stay in the neighborhood they live in, so they got to wait for one of their neighbors to, because their kids have grown up in this neighborhood and have friends.
Right.
So they said, well, we want to buy another house, but we're hoping one of our neighbors will sell us their
Be an arm's length sale or something.
So I'm guessing, though, in that particular instance that you're talking about, the other thing that does, and you haven't said this, maybe you're getting to there, it gave them a set budget. They know exactly how much they can spend on that house and how much they can spend without actually making any changes or wrecking anything when it comes over to those retirement savings.
Correct. And it's a situation where one of the spouse is staying home with the kids, and they're all back in school, so thinking about going back to work. Well, they also know they're going to have a second check that they can apply to a mortgage, and they don't have to increase their savings rate. So that also gives them some more flexibility. Now, I've gotten to know them, so if she does start working, I'm sure they'll get a little bit nicer house, and they'll save a little bit more money too. People who are good with money ultimately save more money when they can.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works.
One of the nice things is that these financial plans are dependent on you. They're personalized for you by Premier Investments in Wealth Management, whether you start out with the good, the bad, the ugly, and in some cases, the ugly can rear its head, like with Chad's question for Casey here. Before we were married, my wife co-signed 2 student loans for a relative. They've not been paid off. My wife gets the occasional call regarding late payments. My wife is currently battling cancer, so we're revisiting everything, making plans if the worst case scenario happens. If I survive her, will I be responsible for the student loan debt if the relative defaults? Dr. Mushrush.
Okay, well, Chad, I am not a medical doctor.
Right.
Before I get over to that, though, I'm sorry you guys are facing this. It does sound like you guys got quite a bit going on, and there is, kind of what Doug alluded to a little bit, that there is definitely some turmoil that is happening, particularly on the emotional level. So I do hope that you guys make it through this, and that your wife does make a speedy and a full recovery. We will do hope that is for you. So on the financial side, the very short answer, at least when it comes over to the co-signing over on the debt, you yourself are probably not going to be responsible for that because you did not co-sign the loans. Okay. Now, generally speaking, you're not going to be on the hook for that. This being said, there are some things that you do need to be very cognizant of. So, for example, this could very much depend on the type of loan that it was. Now, typically, when we get into a situation where somebody's asking for co-signing when it comes over student loans, those aren't going to be federal loans. Federal loans do have a death put option on them, meaning that if the principal or the person who borrows them passes away, generally speaking, those are going to be forgiven, whatever that dollar amount that is outstanding, that no longer is due. In the event of a private loan, however, it's very much going to be driven by the contract that was actually signed at that point in time. And usually if there is a co-signer, it's probably a private loan. So unfortunately, I won't be able to answer the specifics here. You need to go pull those loan documents. You need to take those, read through the documents and see what liability still survives her. If something were to happen at that point. Now, there is going to be a couple of other areas that you want to pay attention to. State law is going to be very relevant. Some states may allow debt forgiveness, or even over in some different student loans. Again, very, very state law driven. Go check your state law. Maybe have a conversation with an attorney. The other thing is your wife may posthumously be responsible for the loan. And what I mean by that is her estate. So anything that she owns stands against what is owed. And if she has a debt that she co-signed for, she is still technically liable for that debt. And so her estate may still be on the hook for that. And that's where it becomes really, really important from a estate planning standpoint to understand how are your assets titled. So let's say, for example, and you didn't say this, but I'll use this as an example. Let's say that the house is in her name only. Well, it is very possible that if the house is in her name only and it's transferring to you via a will or a transfer on death, depending on the state that you're in, there is a very good possibility that that loan may get attached to that house because it actually gets tied up over into her estate. So if that is the case, it might transfer to you, but it might transfer to you subject to whatever that debt is, meaning that now all of a sudden you are on the hook for it because the asset that you are currently living in has a lien against it that needs to pay off whatever the remainder of the student loan actually is. Now, if it is a joint survivorship over on that deed, maybe there's a possibility that you assume ownership of the house and that would actually pass free and clear. But again, property ownership is going to matter. The state that you're in is going to matter, whether it's separate property versus individual property or community property. That is going to matter an awful lot. So unfortunately, I don't have a very good answer for you, except that you need to check the contract. You need to understand how that interplays with various different estate planning provisions. And then hopefully, again, we hope that your wife does come through this and does okay on the other side of this as well.
Definitely, Casey. One thing is that when we've been talking about these things, these are individual ideas and ideals and plans and things like this. Is very much an individual. This may be one of the first times that I can recall we've had a question that was like this, that has got so much gravity that's attached to it. And the fact that you are saying, okay, we need to take a look into this is remarkable, because there's so many people who, just like when they get financial plans, they just kind of shrug and they walk away, or they just don't want to know the answer. Yeah. It's really easy to do that. The folks,
I think the fact, Chad, that you guys are even asking the question, I mean, good for you, because what this does, and I talk about this in the estate planning process with people all the time. When people come to me and we are writing an estate plan for them, so we're putting together wills or trusts or whatever these different estate planning mechanisms are, they're not asking me what to do. And what I mean by that is they come to me and say, hey, what are the different mechanisms that we need to carry out X? Here's what we want to do. How do we get it done? And that's really kind of what your question is over on here, is that what we're trying to do during this entire estate planning process, we're trying to eliminate surprises. You're trying to eliminate a surprise here. So regardless of what the answer is, whether there's some sort of a liability that survives your wife or not, at least finding out that answers right now can certainly help you settle that, so that you don't have to be dealing with all this stuff while simultaneously dealing with either a potential grief situation, in the event that, again, worst possible case scenario happens if she were to pass away. Now we're dealing with this and we're also grieving simultaneously, which is never when good decisions are made.
No, exactly. Jonas, we've got a couple more questions left. The next one's for you from Amanda. At what point does debt become high interest debt? I've always heard to focus on paying down high interest debt, but I'm unsure what that really means. I have a small credit card balance at 25%, which I know is considered high interest, but I also have a personal loan around 9%, and my mortgage is at about 6%. Do I just focus on the credit cards, or is the other debt also considered high interest?
I will throw my hat in the ring on this one, Amanda, and ask yourself this question. How'd you like to make 25% on your checking account money? Because ultimately, when you pay that credit card off, that's just like making 25%. It's a guaranteed return equal to the interest rate that you're trying to avoid. There's really no universal line on when debt gets too high as far as a number, but I think that common sense would say credit cards, payday loans, 15 to 30%. Try to avoid those. I know that my wife, for some reason, has a credit card that is a 9% interest. I'm pretty comfortable with that. I use that to pay for a graduation party last week, so I'm pretty comfortable with that. Now, obviously, I'm a financial guy. I won't have a balance at the end of the month.
Yeah.
But I did want to pay for the credit card on that. And a 6% mortgage is really a long-term debt. And I think that simply put, there's a reason that Congress required credit card companies to show you how long it's going to take to pay off a credit card if you only make minimum payments. It's right on your statement. Amanda, take a couple of minutes and look at that. A lot of times it's like 25 years, no matter what the balance is, to pay your credit card off if you're making minimum payments. And again, just look at it as an investment. You're making 25% on your checking if you can clobber that credit card debt right now.
Clobber it. Get after it. Amanda, good job, it sounds like, and you're asking the right questions. PremierIWM.com is the website. They've got lots of downloadable material over at that website, whether it's investment or it's things like that, whether you're trying to pay off on the other side to make sure that your money's working well for you. Final question for everybody is from Tammy. I always thought that having a six-figure income meant that you made it. I hit the six-figure mark a few years ago, and I keep waiting for my money problems to disappear, but I still feel like a financial stretch. Has $100,000 become the new middle-class income, or am I doing something wrong?
It's not 1995 anymore, Tammy.
What's that saying? Mo money, mo problems.
I did not expect that from Casey Meshras today.
I'll say a couple comments on this. And again, to your point, Elias, inflation is something that's very real. $100,000 income in today's day and age is not the same as it was in 1995. So, when we have a lot of these things where, if you look at some of these older things that say, oh, once you get to this point, then everything's solved, everything's solved. That's just not necessarily true, at least over when we're talking about nominal dollars anymore. Now, that being said, I do think that while lifestyle creep and inflation can certainly be something that does come over into it, there is a very real thing. Where that second part that I just said, which was that lifestyle creep piece, which is a tendency that as we earn more, we have a tendency to spend more. And so, that thing that I was buying at one point when I was only making $40,000 a year and we were spending $1,000 on it, now that I'm making $100,000, now I'm spending $10,000 on it. So I'm still doing the same thing. I just add extra zeros over to what that additional expense is. So lifestyle creep is definitely something to pay attention. I would be very curious if you had sat down and actually gone through a rigid budgeting process. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not always the biggest fan of budgets. I do think that they have a tendency to be a little bit more historical, telling us what we did with our money. I'm very much of the opinion that we should have a personalized spending plan as far as where we're going to be spending those dollars, and more importantly, have a personalized savings plan so it doesn't really matter where I spend those dollars. I can spend it wherever I want as long as I know that I have the savings mechanisms put in place. But if you do go review, last 3 to 6 months of your banking statements and just figuring out where the money has actually gone, oftentimes this can actually free up some additional cash. You might find that you're maybe not quite as tight as maybe what you were expecting. Maybe you're going out to eat a few more times. Maybe you're going and you have more subscriptions, because this is the thing that always seems to pop up when we have conversations like this. It's the Netflix and the HBO and the Paramount Plus and all these different subscriptions that have a tendency to just kind of permeate our lives. I'll give you a really good example of this. I somehow had like some Geek Squad thing that I had gotten a discount, had signed up for some deal, and for like 2 or 3 years, every June I would get a bill for like $250, and I'd be like, oh, I got to get that thing canceled. And I think it went on for like 2 or 3 years before I actually got it done. And actually, I wasn't the one that did it. Mitzi was the one that finally actually got it off the cart. But just paying attention and looking at some of those different things that you may actually have a little more play in there than what you think that you do, and just really paying attention to it more so than anything else.
That's a good point. The little things actually nickel and dime us a lot more than bigger purchases. I think a lot of times people think about their personal finance and they start to think about bigger purchases that they made, vacation, car, home. But if you really think about the day-to-day or month-to-month things that really nickel and dime your situation, it's a lot of smaller purchases and smaller decisions that really add up over time.
Small leaks sink big ships.
Small
Ben
leaks.
Franklin.
Sink big ships. That's a Ben Franklin.
Really,
quote,
the good news, Tammy, and these are great points, is feeling stretched. I think everybody's feeling stretched right now. It doesn't automatically mean that you're doing anything wrong. What matters most is we need to get your financial confidence back. You're making a 6-figure income right now. And like Casey said, and like Elias said, where's it all going? Where do you live? $100,000 goes a lot further in different places. Are you supporting a family? Are you paying for childcare? We know that the taxes and insurance and housing are all going up. Just the home repair bills, if you want to do a home repair once a year. And you have the challenges that you adjusted for inflation right now. If you look at how much you're getting for a pay raise, it's probably not keeping up with how much they want to charge for your car insurance. Yeah. So like Casey said, you need to pinpoint this down with a line item and go through everything that you're paying a bill on and just start getting rid of some stuff. And I think, Doug, in one of my books, I had people rank between, it was either a 1 or a 10, whether they wanted to keep paying for something that was a part of their lifestyle. So if it's a net flips, well, flip that Netflix out of your bills. But if it's a subscription to Netflix, it's either a 1 or a 10. If you have to have it, then it's a 10. Circle a 10. Right. If there's no such thing as a 5. If it's a 1, then just get rid of it. And that's how you really clean things up. But that's really, I think, in my opinion, the only way to do it. You have to go through the line item.
And I think your point on that, Jonas, is what you're doing is you're actually being more intentional about your money, and you're telling it what to do rather than just having things randomly happen. Right, and I think that's a really great point. So, and I'm going to pick on the millennials, because we had the avocado toast there for a while. It was like millennials just want to go out and eat avocado toast, and that's why they're not saving for retirement. Maybe some other reasons, but if avocado toast is important to you, then it should be a 10 over in that budget line item. It's not to say completely and totally eliminate. It's just get an understanding of what's actually going on. Because I think to your point, Jonas, and I love the way that you phrase that. When you have that confidence around your money, when you actually understand what is happening, it gives you the confidence to actually make an active decision. Don't just sit back passively and allow the thing to happen, but when you are actively determining this is what I'm going to do, it just puts you into a completely and totally different emotional spot that allows you to be intentional, which is really what a lot of this stuff is about.
Your money working for you, something that Casey just said, and we'll wrap here with this in the program. I did a interview with somebody from the Common Sense Institute who said that since January of 2020 through March of 2026, Iowans are paying $1,500 more per month for the same basket of stuff. So you have to become much more intentional with what your money is doing for you. Otherwise, it's going to run your life, not the other way around. You can get a hold of that in part by coming to Premier Investments and Wealth Management website at premieriwm.com. Click Get Started. Just answer a few questions. They'll provide for you a 1-page Premier Vision document and a free meeting with them so that they can go over with it. 1 page, just like that. And it's got nice graphics on it, but there's a lot of information behind it, and it's personalized to what the answers to the questions you made were. Premier Investments and Wealth Management, they'll come to you. You can come to them. They'll meet you in the middle on the internet, however you want to do it. You start at premieriwm.com, or you can call 800-383-6590. That's 800-383-6590. Premier Investments and Wealth Management, once again named Forbes 2026 Best in State Wealth Management Team. For Elias Randall, for Jonas Everett, for Dr. Casey Mushrush.
Just you, Doug.
My name's Doug Wagner. We'll talk to you again next time in the Premier Investments and Wealth Management Financial Program.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments in Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide specific individualized tax or legal advice. We suggest that you discuss your specific situation with a qualified tax or legal advisor. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Dollar cost averaging involves continuous investment in securities, regardless of fluctuations in price levels. Investors should consider their ability to continue purchasing through periods of low price levels. Such a plan does not assure a profit and does not protect against loss in declining markets. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. Consult your tax professional about eligibility to Roth and traditional IRA contributions. Contributions to a traditional IRA may be tax deductible in the contribution year, with current income tax due at withdrawal. Withdrawals prior to age 59.5 may result in a 10% IRS penalty tax in addition to current income tax. Contributions and earnings in a Roth IRA can be withdrawn without paying taxes and penalties if the account owner is at least 59.5 and has held their Roth IRA for at least 5 years. A plan participant leaving an employer typically has 4 options and may engage in a combination of these options, each choice offering advantages and disadvantages. Those options include leave the money in their former employer's plan if permitted, roll over the assets to their new employer's plan if one is available, and rollovers are permitted, roll over to an IRA, or cash out the account value. Forbes' Best in State Wealth Management Teams ranking was developed by Shook Research and is based on in-person, virtual, and telephone due diligence meetings, and a ranking algorithm that includes a measure of each team's best practices, client retention, industry experience, review of compliance records, firm nominations, and quantitative criteria, including assets under management and revenue generated for their firm. Investment performance is not a criterion because client objectives and risk tolerances vary, and advisors rarely have audited performance reports. Shook's research and rankings provide opinions intended to help investors choose the right financial advisor and team, and are not indicative of future performance or representative of any one client's experience. Past performance is not an indication of future results. Neither Forbes nor Shook Research receive compensation in exchange for placement on the ranking. For more information, please see www.shookresearch.com. Shook is a registered trademark of Shook Research, LLC.